There's nothing especially new and different about a color-blocked hat and scarf, but when Kate Spade did it, there was a certain classic elegance to it. They're selling out left and right, so I used my circular knitting machines to whip up an inspired version, and I'll share what I learned along the way. Hey everybody, it's me, Margaret, sheepishly sharing this project with you today and wishing you had a better model to look at. I loved this simple black and white combo and immediately thought how easy it would be to make an Addi version. No, it's not as elegant as Kate's, but I like it very much. I used Hirschner's Worsted 8 in black and white, about 1 skein each. For the hat, I used my Addi Express king size machine, but for the scarf, I used my mid-size generic machine because I liked the width. In all honesty, I think I may make another scarf on the Addi Express Professional because I look overwhelmed in the bulk of this scarf. The thinner ones suit me better. And let's start with the hat, which is a slouchy double layer hat with a fold-up brim. And it could be made reversible if you wanted it to. So here's the recipe. For the first side, it's 15 black, 15 white, and 30 black for a nice thick brim. I'm making my second side a mirror image of the first, so I'm not changing colors. So for the next side, I'll be doing 30 black, 15 white, 15 black. Now if you want a different look on that second side, you'll change your colors, of course. But remember, as with any Addi project, your yarn selection and or tension could alter these numbers. So you may want to do a practice hat with the yarn you've selected just to see how it turns out. I'm going to start with my typical cast on, which is every other needle. I never count my cast on rows, so I'll set my counter as soon as it's complete. Then, following the recipe, I'll complete my 15 rows of black. I'll reset my counter. Even though my counter is historically not very accurate, I'm going to give it a go anyway. Gotten 6 rows in, and for this Hirschner's Worsted 8, I like to use weights. I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but I do find that it performs better for me for this yarn. But remember that everybody has different experiences, so do whatever works best for you. There are no rules. I've done 15 rows of black, so now I'm going to switch to the white. And I'm going to do 15 rows of white. I'm using the same typical yarn adjoining technique where I simply cut it, tie it temporarily one time, and then after I get a few rows going, I'll tie it a second time. So 15 rows of white. Once you get a few rows, you can actually see what's happening a little bit better, and you can tie your knot easier there. So 15 rows are completed, so now I'm changing over to the black again using the same technique, basic color change, and this time I'm going to double my rounds. So I did 15 and 15. This time I'm going to do 30 in black. This will allow for the cuff roll up. Now at 60 rows, I feel like one side of my hat is complete. If I wanted to, I could take it off, put it on needles, and do some quick bind off, or I could use it as a rolled brim hat about right here. If I were going to do a rolled brim hat, I think I would add 5 more rows, and that would allow for the roll and still give me the same amount of space showing right here. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make mine a double thick hat where it, falls on itself. I think I'm going to repeat the same pattern, and that way if one side gets dirty or stained, you could turn it inside out and you still have the same hat. You just merely have to change the pom-pom. So now I'm going to do 30 more rows in black, then 15 in white and 15 in black to finish it off. Now because I was trying to keep a kitten from chasing my yarn, I overshot a little bit, but that is a very minor issue. So now I am cutting off I don't know, 20 inches or so of yarn so that I could do your typical bind off, where you pick it up and just pull it through. It's just going to be a drawstring. I think I cut off too much yarn. So I'll meet you back. So you want to remove all these things. And this is your typical reversible hat. We want to stretch it out as we always do when we take anything off the machine. And what we're going to do is sew these ends closed. We're going to pull them up like a drawstring, and we're going to sew them closed. Now, because black is notoriously hard to film, I'm going to insert a clip from another tutorial. I gathered the end closed and secured it the usual way by sewing in the end. Nothing new here, just the old tried and true techniques. I love the ease of being able to hide the long end inside the center of the tube, bring the needle out through one side, pull snugly, snip, and when you straighten, it disappears. So repeat this closure on the other side and then stuff one end inside the other and poof, you have a hat. Now for the scarf, we're doing the same thing. We're making a great big tube. Now I'm going to do it on this little generic machine in the same way that I did the hat. Every other needle. Now the same thing is true when I get about 5 or 6 rows in. Whenever I have enough to clip, I'm going to add some weights. Now I don't have a counter on this machine, but I'm not going to worry about rows. I am going to do one color until it looks like I've done enough for one half of my scarf. Now I realize that this sounds incredibly haphazard to those of you who like precise instructions, but this method works beautifully and you can totally relax while you're making this scarf. Where you stop is up to you. I stopped when my scarf touched the floor. My machine is sitting on a table that's 30 inches off the ground, in case you're wondering, and by the way, yes, this is a salad spinner. It's a tip I learned from Susie, the owner of the Facebook group Addi Loomers and Knits. I changed colors and continued on. Now here's a bit of trivia. This Hirschner's Worsted 8 was not happy on this machine. I had to develop this crank and press technique to make it work. Luckily, I had a great audiobook I was listening to, so it was all good. I kept an eye on it, and when I saw that the white was long enough to touch the floor, I did a few extra rows just for good measure and then removed it from the machine. Okay, so I've got the scarf here, and remember, I folded it in half, but remember you really want to do your stretching of all the stitches. And now, because I didn't count my stitches, I purposely went a little, what I thought would be a little longer on the white. And I was correct. Now your cast on edge is always wonky like that. So I know that in the end what I'm going to do is gather this, but right now I just kind of want the, I just don't want it to look quite so wonky. I want it to lay flat too, if I can get it that way. So I'm pulling it in and then distributing the gathers a little bit. Just so it's not quite so curly. Okay, so now I can see how much longer my white is, and what I'm going to do, now don't panic because this is okay, is I'm going to take out my gather and let these stitches be live, and I'm going to actually rip back. Now there are wiser people than I who will put in a lifeline. But to me, I feel like that's going to take too much time. This is not that big of a deal. And I happen to have this acrylic yarn going for me that kind of stays put. It doesn't slippy slide out of the way. So what I'm going to do is just continue to rip back until I get to match my black side. Okie dokie. I feel like that is close enough. So what I'm going to do now is leave enough yarn that I can gather up all these stitches comfortably. Alright, so I've got my tapestry needle here, but I need to determine which direction I need to thread these, okay? So if I pull a little bit more, I see that it's going that direction, right? The stitches are lessening in that direction. Now normally if it was on the Addi machine, if it was on the circular knitting machine, we would be picking up this next one, choo 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 choo, as we go around. But I don't want to drop this stitch. If I keep going in this direction, this remains live, it can easily get pulled. So I'm going to pull it first. Catch it first, okay? And now I'm going to very gently pick up each of these loops. Now one thing I know, if you're going to be reckless like I am, you have to figure out the tricks. And one of the main things to know is the least amount of touching and pulling you can do, the better. So very gently, try not to touch, stretch, pull, or anything with your other hand. And just pick up each of the loops. And you can see with this acrylic, the loops stayed, I think, perfectly shaped. I know white is very hard to see, and normally did not use this for a tutorial, but since we were trying to make it look like the Kate Spade scarf, that's the color I chose. I think you can see what I'm doing here. You see how nicely formed that loop remained? We're very fortunate because acrylic tends to do that nicely for us. Now, I would not pick it up like this normally. I would leave it lying flat so I wouldn't have a chance of pulling any of these. But I needed you to see what I was talking about, so I'm being very brave by picking it up and exposing those loops to the camera so you can see. But it's not nearly as scary as it seems. If you drop a stitch, you do know how to fix it, because we've got plenty of videos out there floating around YouTube that tell you how to fix dropped stitches. And remember, it's only yarn. No stressor for your hobby. So I'm coming to the last stitch. So I got this one to pick up, and then here's the one that I started with, where I made that kind of like a little knot. So I'm just going to pick it up right there, and ta-da, I'm finished. So now I can gather each of the ends as we would for a regular gathered scarf. And then sew in the ends. Repeat the same thing on your black side, working with it until you get the opening as small as possible, like that. Now it's time to choose a pom-pom size, and judging from the picture, my best guess is going to be the largest of this clover set. I love these clover pom-pom makers. To me, it just makes it easier. I am not a good pom maker by, doing the cardboard and everything. But in case you don't have these, let me give you a measurement. The diameter of this is about 3.5 inches, maybe 3.25 inches, something like that. So I just want you to have this information because I don't know what kind of pom maker you want to use. Now, if you're in the market for clover pom makers, I've got a link in the description box that takes you to all the products that I recommend on this channel, and clover pom makers are my favorites. I have seen an off-brand, and I do have a link for those as well, that look exactly like it, and I know people who have personally used those. So either way, whatever deal you like best, get those. So, using whatever pom-pom making method that floats your boat, you'll need to create 3 poms. Choose your colors based on contrast. I needed 2 whites and 1 black to complete the look I chose.
Now this is not going to be reversible because I made it identical on either side. So if it needs to be turned inside out because of a stain or something like that, then the recipient will have to take off the palm.
Now black is notoriously hard to film, so I pulled this little hat out in the pastel colors to be our hat for the demonstration purpose for the pom-pom. Now, if we want to make it so that the palm can be removed, the simplest way to do this, take one side of your palm string and put it on your needle, and then I put it right beside that center hole. You see how close I am to the gather center? And put it through. And it's coming out pretty good right there. See where it is? So I'll pull it through and then let go. Pick up the other leg of the pom-pom, for lack of a better term, and then I'll look directly across. Okay, it's coming out right here, so I'm going to go directly across. There's the hole. How about right there? And then you got to flip it so that you can see it on the underside. Pull it on through. Now again, if I want to make this a removable palm, I will just tie this right here. Pull it snugly so that it stays put. And you can just tie it any old way so that it stays on. Now you don't want to tie it too tightly because then you can't remove it, right? But if it's on like this and the wearer has it on their head, it's going to be fine and it's going to wear well and everything's great, unless of course somebody grabs you by the palm and pulls it like that. I don't know, even then it's pretty tight. But that gives you an option for a removable one in a simple form.
Any tapestry needle will do, of course, and basically what I do is I'm going to sew one end, put the needle in the middle like that, and sew one tail of my palm on that side, and one tail of my palm on this side, and then it doesn't matter, however you want to affix it. But this is the way I'm going to do it right now. I'm tying it tightly. See, it is tight against the knitted fabric. So I'm going to tighten that up a couple of more times. We'll go around to this side and do the same thing. And then what I like to do is I'll just hide these ends inside the tube scarf. When you squinch it and give it a clip and straighten it out, it completely disappears. So there's the first palm, and I'll repeat the process on the second side.
And here they are. Of course, you're not locked into any color combo, so think creatively. What's your favorite team colors, or maybe holiday colors like Halloween or Christmas? It's hard to go wrong with classic designs, so have fun. As always, thanks for watching, and I do have the smartest viewers in all the world. So check the comments section below for people who have better ideas than what I've shared here. Maybe a creative way for attaching those temporary pom-poms. Who knows? Talk soon. Bye-bye.